Welcome back, everyone. My name is Ritu Bhandari. I'm the manager in the Policy and Insights team at Economist Impact, and very excited to be moderating this interview with both of you. And I'm sure everyone in the audience is very excited as well. But before that, let me quickly introduce our panelists. Sitting beside me is Faiz bin Suleiman, who's the senior general manager, strategy, finance, and risk for downstream business at Petronas. And here beside him is Bradley Lord, who's the team representative for Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. Thank you both for joining us today. And for the next 15 minutes, we'll be talking about partnerships for sustainability, driving value for business. So we'll really focus on that partnership aspect here. Maybe Bradley, if I could start with you first. Mercedes AMG Petronas F1 team has committed to net zero targets until 2030 and beyond as well. I know we were talking about it earlier. Can you tell us a little bit more about what these goals look like and what are the big changes that you've had to make to be able to meet them?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Rita, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to speak. So Formula One has set a net zero 2030 target for factory to flag emissions in the sport. So essentially, the racing spectacle that you see happen each weekend at the racetrack, we will be targeting a net zero position by 2030. What that means for us as Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team is a 75% reduction in our race team control emissions. So from the point our team and our car leaves the factory and starts flying around the world and driving around the world in order to get to racetracks, and then also the fuel that we're burning at the racetracks and what we're consuming at the tracks themselves. So that has led to a huge amount of activity in the Scope 3 space of our aviation emissions and investments into sustainable aviation fuel to compensate our freight and people emissions. It's led to investment in biodiesel technology for the land-based logistics when we take trucks and motorhomes around Europe for our European leg of the season. But most importantly, it's driven regulatory change. So next year, the sport will introduce a brand new power unit, which is 50% electric, 50% internal combustion, but most importantly, and speaking to the power of partnership, with a 100% advanced sustainable fuel that our teammates at Petronas are currently very, very hard at work developing, along with our engineers in the UK. So that will mean that the tailpipe emissions of the Formula One cars themselves, they're running on sustainable aviation fuel, and we'll see a significant reduction in what is a very small part of our actual overall emissions footprint, but a very important symbolic part of the sport's commitment to innovation and to more sustainable technology for the future.
That's really, really interesting, and thank you for sort of providing this really good overview. When we talk about sustainability in motorsport, right, like you were saying, obviously aviation fuels is one part, but in the cars itself, it's the fuel that we're talking about. What about electrification? Because in the broader transport sector, there's so much talk about electric vehicles. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually had a measure of electrification in Formula One since 2009, when the first hybrid systems were introduced way back then. Mercedes was an innovator at that time and one of the few manufacturers to run that hybrid system. It was called KERS, because in Formula One we love an inexplicable acronym that no one can quite understand. But it was called KERS, and it was actually quite a decisive race-winning advantage on a number of different occasions in that season. It was retired for a year, came back, and then in 2014, we brought in a much more integrated hybrid engine and hybrid power unit, as we call it. So 2 electric motors and a much larger battery module and control electronics module. And for the last decade, that's what we've been racing with. And we've also, in parallel, increased the bio content of the fuel that we use over those years. So we currently run a 20% ethanol fuel, and we are about 20% electrified with the current power unit. And then for next year, we move to the big leap in sustainable fuel technology and to roughly 50% electrification. So 350 kilowatts, let's say 450 horsepower of electric power that the cars will be running from next season.
Really interesting. Thank you for highlighting that, and I'll just come back to you, come to you, Faiz, in a
Sure,
bit.
sure.
Just one, maybe one last question before Faiz, we talk about Petronas. When we talk about F1, of course, it's so performance based. Can these sustainability targets sort of clash with the performance goals? Does that happen, and how do you navigate that when that happens?
Yeah, there's always the risk that a push for sustainability could compromise performance. And we have a really simple internal rule. There's no chance we're going to get a project to happen if it's in any way going to make the racing car slower. So we have some unusual constraints in Formula One because we have a cost cap. And so the money we spend on the car is regulated and fixed. And so any inefficiency in that spend would also be problematic. So there's quite a lot of regulatory work and administrative work to do with the governing body to exempt more sustainable projects. But we are just now getting to the stage where, in addition to addressing our logistics footprint and the sort of scope 3 side of things, we're also starting to look more deeply into the supply chain and currently have 2 pilot projects running that will see more sustainable forms of carbon fiber, which accounts for 75% of the racing car. So 2 projects for more sustainable forms of carbon fiber that will be on the car this year, and that are pilots to hopefully introducing and mandating more sustainable materials in the construction of not just of our racing cars, but every team's cars as well. And that's been a really interesting aspect of sustainability in F1, is how, you know, we're horribly competitive with each other and always need to beat the other teams. But how do we have that level of competition, but then also a level of collaboration that means the entire sport is going on the same journey of sustainability rather than just 1 or 2 teams who have the financial ability to invest in it?
Thank you for bringing collaboration back, and that's where maybe I'll bring you in, Faiz.
Sure.
Bradley talked about the partnership with Petronas. What specific technologies and innovations is Petronas developing in this partnership? If you can provide like a snapshot of that to us first.
Thanks, Ritu, for that question. I think what we do from an approach perspective, we use the F1 racetrack as a platform for simulation. So what we can do trackside, we believe we can actually do for road cars as well. So there are a couple of functionalities within Petronas itself that are actually working on this in this particular area to ensure that we are able to achieve these milestones. Now, through our partnership with Mercedes, we engineer fluids that integrate seamlessly with power unit advancements. This is to actually enhance the ability or enhance the performance trackside as well. So today, we already provide lubricants, fluid technology solutions for the race cars. We provide support with regards to hydro-treated vegetable oils for land logistics or ground logistics. We're working on supporting the F1 requirements for their aviation requirements as well, sustainable aviation fuel. And while we're doing all this, we're also preparing ourselves in terms of ensuring that we're able to deliver what Bradley referred to just now, the advanced sustainable fuel, which is 100% sustainable for the 2026 season. So, and in F1, these cars actually go at great speeds, and they use some of the most advanced technologies and innovations in practice. And this is done over maybe over 30 weeks in a year. So manufacturers like Petronas, what we do is we collect that data, which is actually undertaken in a high-level, sustainable performance sort of environment. And then we want to work towards translating this data to be able to provide fuel for the sustainable fuel for people like you and me, the man on the street. So that's our aim, effectively.
And what's been the progress on that? That's really interesting. You know, this almost F1 is like this testing pilot ground, right? And then we have this big transport sector, which has its own emissions. So how do you see that translating?
So, sorry, your question is in reference to ground transportation?
No, just like the innovations that you're seeing in F1, be it related to fuels. Like, how do you see that translate to, for example, like you were saying, the modes of transport that you and I use?
Yeah, I think given the energy transition that, well, as an organization, we want to sort of begin to posture ourselves as an energy superstore, right? So given the energy transition which many oil and gas companies are now experiencing, I think this is one of the achievements that we want to work towards, aspirations that we want to work towards too, which is the ability to be able to provide sustainable fuel for the man on the street.
Thank you for that. And I want to ask you about the talent as well, because I'm sure this partnership, like, doing this kind of innovation needs skills and talent. But before that, I'll just, after that question, I'll come back to the audience. If you have any questions, please do make a note of them as well. I see one here, but if anyone else in the room has a question.
Okay.
Maybe Faiz, to you first around, because the kind of innovations that you're seeing obviously would need a good talent pool. How does the talent exchange work from both of your perspective? If quickly, both of you can give like a quick answer on that.
Right. Thanks for that question. So, as we progress with our partners, Mercedes, I think our people will also progress alongside us. And we've got a pool of talented individuals that actually apply this expertise in this particular area, i.e. in terms of developing sustainable fuel. And this is in addition to the specialized teams that we already have at our Center of Excellences in Italy and also in Malaysia. Now, with regards to how we work together, we acknowledge and we recognize that we need to have the right people and the right skills to enable ourselves to progress in this particular area. So with that in mind, we've actually, we not say develop, we actually have a young, or we actually invest in our young talent pool to actually work with Mercedes, where we've actually established an internship program with Mercedes-AMG F1. So every year, we sort of send 7 to 8 students from our Malaysian universities from various engineering backgrounds that are then placed in Mercedes outfit in various engineering functions as well. And to date, I think we've, and this internship regime is for about 7 months in a year. And to date, since inception in 2011, I think we've seen 75 to 80 of these folks graduate from the internship program and on-job training with Mercedes.
Yeah, and there comes a point in every year where you see this a gaggle of young people from Malaysia who've feel like they've landed on the moon, I think, because it's February in the UK, it's very wet, it's very cold, it's quite dark when they come into the factory on the first morning, and you can see this sort of look of shock and excitement combined in their eyes.
Yeah.
But those interns make a fantastic contribution to the team, and then obviously that investment in future talent goes back and strengthens Petronas as an organization as well, and it brings to life the way in which we talk about Formula One, which is as the fastest laboratory in the world. So be it for technology, but also for people. That's something that we, through our partnership, bring to life in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bradley. We have a question here right in the middle. Can we please pass the mic? We can pass the mic here. If you can keep your question short, since we are running out of time.
Sure. Tarun Dhamanasekara, Senior Lecturer at the PIM Business School in Sri Lanka. Bradley, just want to say I'm a Mercedes fan pre and post Hamilton.
Excellent, that's good to hear.
Just a question, because you do so much on sustainability, and a key part of your team and the racing team is also the fan base, and the younger generations are supposed to be the ones who really care about the environment. Is there any measure, or have you got any insights on how your sustainability efforts, while contributing towards the car's performance, also helps you to attract some of these younger generation of fans? Is there any study or insight on that?
We have some metrics that certainly show us that Mercedes fans are more predisposed towards sustainability and towards sustainability initiatives, more likely to make sustainable purchase choices or to embrace sustainable opportunities, for example, in transportation when they come to race events and things like that. So still early stage research, but we can certainly see a benefit in from in the fan base and in fan reception to the initiatives that we're taking. I think Formula One and sustainability is somewhat counterintuitive when you first think about it, but we like to think of it that we're able to demonstrate that if an industry that is as reliant on air transportation as ours, that is fundamentally based on combusting a liquid fuel in an engine, if we're able to demonstrate significant progress in sustainability, then it kind of shows that any industry can, and every industry can as well. And that message and the positivity of that message, and the fact that we're doing it in a way that isn't compromising the sporting spectacle. It's not damaging the entertainment. It's actually arguably from next year enhancing the entertainment. That's a really important thing as well. So it can't go against the core of the sport and the product, which is to give people something fun and interesting to either to attend or to watch on a Sunday afternoon, morning or evening, according to where you are around the world.
Thank you so much, Bradley. We are at time. This was really interesting. We had a lot to cover in just 15 minutes. I think we just touched base. I think there are a lot of F1 fans in the room. Bradley, if I could ask you on a lighter note, which is your favorite race before we close the session?
Oh, favourite race. You asked me this earlier and I've still not got a good answer. They've all got something unique and all got something special. Monza's incredible in Italy. Faiz mentioned earlier the technical centre in Turin, but the passion of the fans there is absolutely amazing. Singapore is a very unique challenge and always a special and memorable trip to Southeast Asia as well. And then for me, I love Brazil. It's the race that is closest to being at the heart of a football stadium when you're standing on the grid and the fans are all cheering and chanting and ready for the race to go, and it's in this amazing natural bowl, and it's a race that's always full of unexpected events and excitement and unpredictability. So yeah, that's a choice of 3.
Thank you. Thank you for giving a concrete answer for that. Thank you so much both for joining us and taking out the time for this conversation. Some really interesting innovations that are happening that we don't often hear about, so this was interesting. And I would just now like to announce the next session, which my colleague Anke will be moderating, so I'll invite them over. But before that, please give a round of applause to both the speakers over here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
Thank you.
for your time again.
Great.